This episode of Escape to the Quarter Bin is sponsored by Infinite Realities Comics and Games, located in the heart of downtown Tucker, Georgia, with over 2,700 square feet of new comics, back issues, paperbacks and hardcovers, gaming, action figures, and of course, the quarter bins. You can even call ahead for curbside service. That's Infinite Realities, comics, games, and more. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Escape to the Quarter Bin. As always, I'm your host, Adrian Johnson. And on today's episode, this will be very, very brief. I was thinking about it when I was going back through my boxes and, some of my cheap bin purchases. And I came across a very special one from to be honest, several years ago, probably over maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And it's special for a couple of reasons. But foremost, it's most special because this is the very first comic book that I remember. As far as my memory goes, this right here is my very first comic book. And it is this. Star Trek number 30, cover dated September of 1986. So 86, that would have made me 6 years old at the time. And what's special about this is, like I said, it's the very first comic that I can remember, as far as my memory goes, that I recall reading. And I remember my mom buying a copy of this. And by the way, this is not the original copy, obviously. But my mom bought this particular book from a Winn-Dixie grocery store. If you guys remember those or, have those chain of grocery stores out in your neck of the woods. But yeah, she brought it off the rack. I remember when we were in the checkout line. And yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Man, this is crazy. And the thing was that for years afterwards, after we had moved and everything, I didn't have the original copy, but I still remembered the actual book itself. I didn't remember who drew it or any details like that. All I remembered was the cover. I didn't even remember the number. But I just remember the cover was Uhura's story, and that it had Uhura in there. And she went down to like this planet, and I think she was fighting with some Klingons. So that's all I remembered about it. And it wasn't until years later, once I was an adult, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try and track that down. And it took some detective work on my part, like stuff like this here. Like for whatever reason, I remember these scenes, from reading them, kind of vaguely. It's kind of like a memory that you're trying to grasp at, what I'm saying? But the details are still pretty vivid, so you would know it when you saw it. And so, yeah, like she goes down to the planet. And there's some Klingons, I believe, or something like that. Well, I guess it wasn't Klingons after all. Okay. But I remember it was a solo story for her. And so when I finally did track down, looking through catalogs online, like how they have like cover galleries for comics online. And I came across this one. I was like, I think that's it. I think that's it. Number 30. So I go to flash forward. I go to a Heroes convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. My favorite comic book convention, hands down. Period. And like I said, this was about, I say 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. And so I go there, right? And I check out, on the very last day. There's a dealer that had just all of these long boxes on the floor of cheap books. Now, how cheap? Since it was the last day of the convention, last day of the convention, for most conventions, I don't know if it's still like this, But that's the day that, man, if there are any deals to be had, that's where you get them. You know, you wait to that last day because, you know, they don't want to take the stuff home with them, you know, so to speak. So all these long boxes are on the floor, you know, cheap bins, you know what I'm saying? And everything in those long boxes was going for 10 cents each. 10 cents, no matter what was in there, you know? So I was like, oh, wow, okay. So, you know, I get down and I'm going through the boxes. And as a side note, what else I found in those boxes, and this may be a future episode just dedicated to this, is I found these. I think it's the complete run of the Miller Mazzucchelli, and even got a double out of it. The complete run of the Miller and Mazzucchelli Born Again saga. You know, all in there. All of these for 10 cents each. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I remember this very well. You know, so that may be a future episode. But back to this. So I'm going through there and I get those Daredevils, but I come across this and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I think this is it. The one that I was looking for. I think this is my first comic. So I pick it up and I start flipping through it and I'm like, yeah, this is it, you know? And so, yeah, I got it and brought it home, and just a whole bunch of emotions. And not to make a lot out of it, but, you know, it does mean a lot to me because, like I said, you know, one of the great joys of, you know, collecting comics, you know, in general, is that for many of us, there is an emotional attachment to these books, either by character or by a period of your life where, you know, you're just young and you're just, you know, enjoying this great hobby, you know, be it the art, or you're learning how to draw, or you're reading the stories or what have you, or in my case, you know, this is almost like a time capsule. You know, it's a marker in time saying that you were alive here during this time, and here is something to prove it in your memory. You know, because a lot of times, you know, you'll come across stuff, you'll think about an old TV show or old, you know, toy or old candy bar or old cartoon, and you're thinking, do I remember that? Was that real? Am I hallucinating that? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, just stuff like this proves that no, it did happen. You know what I'm saying? And it must have been impactful to you that you still remember it all these years later, decades later, even as an adult. So yeah, that's the story behind, you know, my very first comic, Star Trek number 30, Uhura's story. You know, so that's that. Hey, thanks a lot, guys, for traveling down that very brief excursion down memory lane with me. You know what I'm saying? Hey, if you like what you see here or any of the other episodes that you see here on the channel, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe here on the channel. And I also have a Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/InazumaStudios.com and check me out there if you're so inclined. And as always, thank you so much for checking with me, and we'll catch you guys later.